And there we go. We're live.
Hi everyone. So we're on the flip side with myself and Sandy, and we're going to be talking about the market and seeing what's going on in the market right now. So myself, I'm a real estate investor, and Sandy is both. She's a real estate investor and she's a real estate broker. So I think it'll be really good to hear what you have to say. And just before we get started on that, I just wanted to remind everyone that this Thursday, Sandy and I are having our networking event that you don't want to miss. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start it off with mindset and performance, which I think is very important for everyone. If you're getting into anything, your mindset has to be right. And if you want to continue going forward in whatever you're doing, you got to have that performance. So I think come on, we'll be also networking with lots of like-minded people in the real estate community. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get to meet people. And we're going to talk about mindset and performance. So now getting
Amazing.
started, yeah. So now getting started with, I'll start with my point of view, and then Sandy, if you want to chime in and give your analysis, I think that'd be great. So what I'm seeing in the market right now is basically prices are stabilizing, and but what is still happening, I feel that still we're having bidding wars, but what they're doing is they're pricing the houses low to incentivize people that, oh, there's a really good deal, I want to get on that. So there's still bidding wars, but now the bidding wars are just going to what the market value is right now, and they're not going, so they're looking like they're going over, but it's really they're just going to what the price is right now. So I'm seeing a cooling period. What do you think, Sandy?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, Diana. We're seeing that as well here. I've seen that in all the markets here in the GTHA. Um, and I think what's important is what's happening again is now that, so always let me explain a little bit about how this works. Some people think when it's a bidding war that the house sells way above what it's worth. So that's typically not what happens. It's priced under value, so it ends up going up. It ends up pricing to the property the value that it should sell at, so it ends up selling at market value. So typically in most real estate markets, regardless of what's happening, if you're working with a agent who knows the market, they'll pretty much be able to tell you what that house will sell for. So, in some markets we're seeing every house gets listed at 799, whatever, or 899 or whatever it is. In the Hamilton area, it's typically 599 or 649, something like that. And I can look at comparables and say, okay, this house is probably going to sell at 650, this one's going to sell at 7. There were little blips earlier in the year, as well as this is what happened in 2017 as well. What happened was there were little blips there where we couldn't predict what it was going to sell at. The house would sell way over what anyone had predicted. So that's a little bit different than what we're seeing right now. So right now we're still seeing, you're right, we're still seeing that people are pricing them undervalued to drive the price up, but we're seeing a lot of properties that the offer dates are coming and going, and then the house will either stay on the market in that price range, or it'll come off the market and they'll put it back up at what they actually wanted to sell it for. So a lot of that is happening. Now, having said that, the properties that are very much in demand are still selling quite high. So I'll take in the Hamilton area, for example, if you're looking for a property, a smaller entry level detached house with a basement apartment that's renoed and in very good condition, those are still very much in demand, and we're seeing lots of offers on those. Some of the other properties that need a little bit of work or things to do, they not so much. Like, those offer dates are coming and going. If you're showing properties, you're getting calls by the listing agent saying, hey, are you bringing in an offer? We don't have anything going on right now. So we're absolutely seeing that for sure, which is a good thing. It's getting to be a little bit more of a balanced market, and where we can predict things, which I like. I don't, because when the prices are going too high like that, then they're not appraising, and then that becomes a problem down the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also exactly, and it's also just when you're getting into predictive values, it even us as investors, it makes it very hard to really run our numbers, to be honest, because like none of us like to run our numbers with predictive values. And
Yeah.
but then sometimes I feel like especially last year with the prices of houses just going up like crazy, even in January where that did like a huge jump all of a sudden, it was just very, I mean, like buying in December and then seeing that, you're just like, oh my God, let me get rid of this thing. I barely even have to do anything because it just jumps so high.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's really hard. Like it's hard to plan your numbers and have your, A, B, and C plan when you can't figure out what the number is going to be that you have to offer for the property and what's going to happen over time. Is it going to keep going up? What am I going to sell it for? Right? It's just
Hmm.
so much easier. I think you're doing a service to people when you're buying a product, depending on what you're doing, right? Because you're doing some burrs, you're doing some holds, and you're doing some flips. But on the flip side of it, people who want to buy that end product, there's a very real market out there for that, for people who don't want to buy a property that they have to do any work to, so they're willing to pay that. But as an investor buying that property, it's really hard if you can't figure out what is it going to sell for at the end of the day. So,
Hmm.
it's a much better market when it's predictable and everybody can figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah, and especially for flipping, I feel like when it comes to flipping, it's not a forgiving market to get into.
Yeah,
At
for
least
sure.
if you're buying and holding, or buying and burring it out, renovating it and renting it out. If
Yeah.
you do make a mistake within a few years, you're okay again. It's you even out pretty quickly. But with a flip, your time frame is quite tight, so it's like if you don't run the numbers well the first time, you could be losing a lot of money.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to, what we've talked about in the past about um, having your plan A and your plan B, right? Like if you buy a property and your goal is to flip it, you still need to have your plan B, right? Like you still need to know, okay, well, what happens if, I mean, we can't ever predict what's going to happen. I mean, nobody predicted COVID, right? And then nobody predicted that, when COVID first became a thing last year, a year ago, I mean, the real estate market, I think everybody I knew and us included kind of stood back and went like, what's going to happen here? Like, is this market going to completely crash? Nobody saw what was going to happen with this real estate market. So I think that you always have to have that plan B, right? So if something happens because we don't know, Bank of Canada can change their rules overnight. The banks can change their rules. Anything can happen. So we want to make sure that we have that plan B. So maybe you bought it as a flip and you have to hold on to it for a little bit. So should always have that anyway. But I think it's like, kudos to you for recognizing that the market is changing, because I think that's an issue sometimes with investors, is that they're not on top of the market. That's why I think you really need to be aligned with a good realtor who understands the investor market, because you just can't time this market, right?
No,
It changes weekly, and if you're trying to time the market and you're listening to, let's say, the news or something like that, you're always behind the eight ball, because by the time you understand what's going on, you've missed that boat. Like it's crazy how fast the real estate market can change, like on a weekly basis, right?
yeah.
So I think about people who said 3 years ago or 5 years ago, I'm going to wait because these prices are going to come down. Like they're really really far behind. So don't try to time it. Just get into the market and work with it.
Exactly, yeah. And like exactly what you're saying, I do notice like a lot of people will go, oh, then you said this, I need to get on the bandwagon. I'm like, you missed out. It's probably
You
not a
missed
good
it. Yeah,
idea.
exactly. Yeah. If you're hearing it in the news, you've missed out. It's old news. If you're hearing it on the news, it's old news for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That happened actually not related to real estate, but that AMC stock or something. There's a stock that, everyone was trying to inflate to do whatever
Oh,
with the,
GameStop.
yeah, which one was it?
GameStop.
Oh, GameStop. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. GameStop. That's right. And it was funny because a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, I'm getting in. I'm getting in." Then you said it, and I was just like, "I wouldn't do that." I'm like, "You're probably at the top of the market now that it's in the news." And what happens? They lost
Yeah.
their money.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, and that's
Yeah.
what it is in real estate or anything that you do. You have to be so in it, immersed in it, and see
Yeah.
what's going on, because you have to be ready to pivot, right? Like, oh, I'm doing a flip, the market drops, I got to start renting out. And now it's like maybe my renovations are now changing. I may not be doing luxury, I may be doing standard, I may be duplexing now. You start really different strategizing in a different way. Like you have to be prepared to pivot. Um, if you need to, or even just like you're looking for flips, like this is actually what happened to us. I was more wanting to burr, and so I was looking for burrs. All of a sudden, this flip came, and I was not interested in flips just because I'm trying to get as many houses under me as I can at the moment.
Yeah.
That I was not there, but this property came up, like the numbers just looked amazing, and it was one of those things like. Fine, we're pivoting. Now we're gonna do a flip just because this is gonna give us like some really amazing profits, and when the opportunity comes, you have to take it. Doesn't matter the kind of a strategy it is. It's like as long as it's like you said, you have your exit strategies, you know how you're going to work with it. You got to pivot and be ready for what it is, because like that, the market is always changing, and certain strategies only work in certain periods, cycles of the market.
Yeah. But I think so. One thing about that, Diana, like you're seasoned at this, and you know your numbers, and you're immersed in this. So I think I want to kind of just maybe elaborate on that, because you said you were looking for a burr and then a flip opportunity came up. I think you also have to be, you know, you're well established enough to know that this is a good opportunity and I should take it. I think sometimes don't jump into something that you're not prepared for just because you think it's a good opportunity. Like do you know where I'm going with this? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously we've done flips, so we
Yeah.
were able to do a flip, because also even the kind of flip we're doing, like we're spending 200, 300K on this house. So it's not like a little chump change, like if things were to go wrong, 300K,
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
a lot of money to be losing, right? So
Yeah.
so yeah, I was just giving a perspective of pivoting and being
Yeah.
able to pivot, because sometimes it
For
may go the
sure.
other way. Like a lot of people, they were doing burrs, the prices went up, and they just decided to sell off their house because they're just like, man, the amount of money I'm making on the spot right now, you know what? It's better, right, to take that profit than to keep the house long term, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think one thing we're seeing right now, I'm not sure if you're seeing this with flips, is that because the cost of materials gone up so much, right? Like lumber's triple.
yeah.
So you gotta take all that kind of stuff into consideration, right? Because the price of materials gone up, and the ease of getting the materials a little bit harder
Yeah,
now as
the
well.
strategies of how
Yeah.
contractors do things have even changed, right? Because it's like you can't even price things. Before, for example, like my husband would price things and have like a 6 month window. He's just like, don't worry, I got you. The quote's good for 6 months, because things weren't changing so much. Now
Yeah.
it's very different, right? Now you barely even guarantee in a month, you're just kind of like, if you make the decision now, we're getting it done in this month, then it's happening. If not,
Yeah.
then we may have to wait and see what's happening the next month or the month after that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the market, I think there's still a lot of opportunity in the market right now. We're still seeing some deals that are coming up, some private sales or exclusive listings that come up. So there's still opportunities. I really want to stress that, because I think sometimes people think that the market has changed and they've lost out or whatever. But there's always opportunity in the market if you keep your eyes open. So just like you said, you were looking for one thing, and an opportunity came up. They're always out there. Like, I don't think people should ever think that they're timed out of the market. It's always a good idea if you can get in. Just you just may have to, like you say, you may have to shift your strategy a little bit. I, let's talk about market conditions in a second, and time, like prices and stuff like that. But one thing I think maybe you could just elaborate on for people who don't know, is what is a burr?
Yeah, so a burr is when you buy a property, you renovate it, you rent it out, and then you refinance it. And then normally if you refinance it, you're taking out majority, if not all of your money. I mean, in this crazy market, you've actually been taking out your money plus some.
Yeah.
And then that gives you the opportunity to repeat. And
Yeah.
then you just buy another one because you have your profits and the money back. And
Yeah.
normally a house is now you're basically no money in the property. So this house is now making you, infinite returns because there's no money and you have not put any money in the deal. And this money is just, the rent is giving your cash flow and you still have your money to put onto another property.
Yeah. which is a great way for investors, I think, to build up their, the number of doors that they have, right? Is to do, I think we underestimate that part of it. And people who have a property that has a very small mortgage on it, because right now, if you think about it, like if you have a property that's got a lot of equity in it and you're refinancing that property, I mean, interest rates, I think it's HSBC, I'm not sure, one of the banks is doing like 0.99% variable. So if you have a lot of equity in your house, it's not really not serving you, right? There's two schools of thought. Some people say your house should be mortgage free. I kind of disagree with that, as long as you're not using it as an ATM and just spending that money on other stuff. But to take money out of your house and pay, let's even call it 2% interest. 2% interest, and you investing that money at 8%, you're making 6. But if you're taking that money and buying another property, I mean, that's how I was able to build up my portfolio. I'm sure that's how you were able to build up your portfolio. Because if you have to just keep working to save enough for a down payment, it's not going to work. Like take that money, take the money out, because sitting there is not doing you any good. It's not helping you. If you're reinvesting it, it'll help you get to where you need to go for sure.
100% agree. Totally. Yeah. I think if you have equity, put it in something. And again, it's all about running the numbers. How much is the interest rate? How much am I getting back cash flow? Okay, what's the difference? Is that good for me? Yes, no. Okay, let me go like find the next property or find something else, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely what if you can, like if your money can make you money, why not?
Yeah, for sure. And it certainly can. There's so many markets like that are still good. So anyone who thinks like the market is going to go down, I mean, things are stabilizing for sure, but is the market going to go down? I just don't see that for a number of reasons. One is because interest rates are too low, with really no indications that they're going to go up anytime soon. I
Yeah.
mean, significantly for sure. The other thing is just the basically what's the inventory. Like, we have less than a month of inventory right now in all our GTHA markets. It's less than 1 month of inventory. That number has to go up significantly for us to have a turnaround, right? So if people understand what months of inventory is if no more listings came on the market, how many houses do we have? How long would the inventory that we have last? Right now, it's less than a month. I think it's 0.8 of a month of inventory on the market right now. That number has to rise significantly for this market to turn around, right? We need anything under probably 2 or 3 months is considered a seller's market. And when you start getting into longer time frames, then it starts to turn around and become a buyer's market. So with less than 1 month of inventory on the market right now, it's pretty unlikely that this market is going to go down. We are seeing more listings come on the market, but we're seeing more sales as well. Like the listings are up, but sales are up as well. So, there's a lot of pent up demand out there. And I think there's some, good reason to get into the market. Still lots of upside.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Do you want to get into the numbers and tell us what's going on in the market right now?
Sure. So let me just give me a second while I pull my screen up here and get you some info for sure.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, with the market changing, I mean, it's always also good. And I think that's what I like about you guys' system. You guys have like always the up-to-date things or, like that. I mean, it's part of the job, right? As a broker, you have to be up to date on what's going on to make sure that you're giving your clients the best advice for what are the next steps.
Yeah, so here's an interesting stat that I found really interesting. So the sales activity, according to Toronto Real Estate Board, for March 2021 there was 15,000 sales. In March 2020, there was 7,900 sales. So the sales have doubled this year, and the prices have continued to go up, which would indicate that it's still a very strong seller's market. There's still a lot of buyers out there. Now, the average price, according to TREB, in March 2020, the average price was $902,000. That's across all spectrums. So that's across the whole GTA and all different types of housing. And then March 2020, the average sale price was $1,097,000. So the average sales price has gone up almost $200,000. The interesting part about that you have to remember is the condo market was down the condo market I think was up or down 1%. It was up or down 1%. So that, remember, brings the average way down. So that's quite a big jump. Even though we've seen a lot more sales, we've also seen a really high, really high increase in the average sales price. So, and over time, if you look at that, if you look at the charts of the sales prices over time, it continually goes up, right? So, I mean, there's always this up and down that we have, but if you look at the big line, it's always going up, which is an indication that housing is important. So I think that, I mean, housing is becoming more and more important to people. I think as we go through COVID, people are really starting to realize how important housing is to them and having a stable environment. So that's all really good for the housing market for sure. New listings are up. The number of new listings on the market are up as well. And they're still continuing to come on the market, but they're selling. The other interesting stat is the rental market stats. So the rental market is up as well, which is very interesting to me. And as long as that rental market keeps going up, there's the opportunity to purchase houses and get them rented out, which is what an investor is looking for, right? What's our return on investment? So
100%.
that's a really good stat as well. I want to pull up some more individual ones, so I'll let you go on there for a second, and I'll.
Great. Yeah, as for rental properties, and just even before everything happened in COVID, rental properties there weren't enough rental properties. So I think, like that, and even more now, I think it's now even worse. I feel like there's even less rental properties for the amount of people that need rental properties. So I just feel like, yeah, for investors, I mean, that's the safest way to go, is to have your little rental property, because demand is insane.
Yeah, it is insane. So, okay, let me get some, this is broken down by, sorry, give me 1 second.
No problem.
So depending on like where people want to be, what do you suggest in terms of where to buy? Like if you're starting out and you're an investor, where do you suggest people start looking, I guess is my question.
I wonder if I feel like that's for a beginner we're talking about, right? I mean, I feel like for beginners, naturally, because of their money mindset, going for big numbers is very scary. So you'd
Yeah.
probably want to go actually into the smaller cities where the numbers look a little bit more reasonable to them. Because, for example, like that, like we went from a house that we bought a house, let's say 250K or 270K, where I feel like, let's say for a new beginner, that's like a nice, okay, that's a number that I can deal with, that works,
Yeah.
right? And imagine if you go to a number like now the flip we're doing, 1.4 million. Imagine telling a new investor, hey, you want to invest in a $1.4 million flip? They'd be like, are you crazy? Baby steps,
It's a comfort thing, right? It's a comfort thing. Like you do the first one, and then you start to become comfortable with these numbers, and then
But even if you
it's
do
just
though,
numbers.
like a Toronto, let's say if you do a flip, like even if you do a flip in Toronto, that's like a small renovation. Just the fact that it's, let's say, above $1 million does something to people's minds, right? Imagine if you compare two different properties, right? And let's say the profits are the same, people, or well, not even the same. Let's say even if you're making a lot more money on $1 million house than you are, let's say, on a 200K, percentage wise, you're making even more.
Yeah.
People will still go for the lower number, even though, let's say, the amount of work is the same. They'll still go for the lower amount of property, just because a lot of people can't like put their head around, like, holy, I'm doing $1 million home, where it's just like, but the amount of work is the same. Like things are the same. It's just that number that scares you.
Yeah, for sure. It is the number. So different, like depending on I think the one market that's really been doing really well for the last little while and continues to do well is Durham. Like Durham seems to be really growing, and I wonder if that's like a lot of new build and stuff like that out there. But their market seems to be up quite a bit. So so in Durham, if we're just looking at like all of Durham region, and you're looking at all, so let's say detached, and this is just in March. So in March in Durham, the average sale was 113% of the list price. And the average days was 7 days on the market. Obviously, the 7 days on the market is because they were holding offers on those, right? But the new listings, like this is interesting because the new listings there was 1,945 new listings and 611 sales, and the average sale to list price is 113%. So still quite a bit. And in Durham, the average sales price of a detached property is just shy of $1 million. So I'll probably just jump up over $1 million in a little bit, but that's that's pretty good numbers there. So let me find some other areas.
And that was you're talking about March this year, right? Not last year, this year?
Yeah, that's this year. That's March 2021. So I want to pull up another couple. I want to see what that market is in Peel. Peel would be an interesting market as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I say outside of the GTA is where we've seen the most that percentage-wise increases in the values of houses.
Yeah.
It's been pretty crazy to see those numbers.
Yeah.
Like that our burr that we did, oh my God.
Yeah.
It increased so much in value. We were so surprised.
I know. So if you're talking Peel, so in Peel region, the average price in Peel region right now is just shy of 1.37 million is the average sales price. So there was 2,355 new listings in March and 968 sales. The average sales to list price was 105% and 8 days on the market. So again, that tells you that most people were holding offers on those. And I mean, those are pretty big numbers there in Peel.
Mm-hmm. What about, for example,
that's only detached.
Detached, yeah. Because, like, for example, I noticed things that were already a mill, like let's say Oakville and Toronto, their percentage of increases, I felt like stayed pretty normal.
Okay,
Did you see that?
let's look at just Oakville in particular, because Oakville tends to have a pretty high. Just give me 1 second here. This is all of Halton, so that would include Burlington, but just give me 1 sec. Oh, Halton Hills, 1 second. Okay, so let me see here. So in Oakville, the average sales price in Oakville, is this March? Yeah, this is March 2021. So the average sales price was 1.87, and there almost 500 new listings, 200 sales, average sales to list price 104% and 12 days on the market. So
That's what actually increased in the same percentage.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just so used to seeing houses in the million that it's just kind of like, it's still the same.
Yeah. Well, I want to see what it's up though year. Let me see if I can get year over year. 1 second here. Yeah, year. Okay, so year to date in Oakville is average sales price 1.8, median price, new listings 104%. I want to get the prices from a year ago though, and see how much they've gone up. See, the average house has gone up about 22% year over year across all markets in the GTA. So that's
Like
quite a
in the
big hike
last year.
in the last year. Like
yeah.
from now till last year, the average price has gone up about 22%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a big. So like you're saying, like it's quite a big jump, right?
Oh, yeah. Did you see the article that came out actually saying that the incomes, like that the amount of the amount that the houses increased were actually more than the median income in that specific city. So for example, I don't know, let's say Mississauga, the median income is like 80K. The houses probably went up like 100K. Like the houses were beating people's medium incomes.
Yeah, well, I think interest rates have a lot to do with that, right? Because you could qualify for so much more when the rates are as low as they are. You know,
Mhm.
when rates are 2%, your buying power is much higher, right? So, I mean, even though you're still you still got to qualify at the higher amount, but your buying power is so much higher there. So
Mhm.
I want to see if I can get the benchmark prices and if they've changed over the last year.
Hmm. Yeah, and because of that, though, because the prices of houses increased so much, for example, a lot of people at the beginning of COVID thought, "Oh my God, people are going to go into foreclosures and
Yes.
people are going to be losing their houses." And then again, what you're saying, waiting game, like, okay, we're going to wait for those people to go into foreclosures because then we can grab it at cheaper deals. But because the prices of houses went up so high, people that were going into issues because it went up so much, they were able to sell off, cover all their debts, and probably still have a little bit left for themselves and kind of come out, going pretty well by selling their house. And for example, those people that waited out being like, hey, foreclosure. Because I remember, I think around September last year, I was just like, guys, it's not happening. Like the prices are too high. Like now mortgages, got smaller in the sense, right? Because the price of houses went up so much that now you had so much equity that you could just either a lot of people refinanced and took it out to try to survive, or like that, they're just like, take advantage of the moment, sell the property, we get rid of all our debts and we still have some money for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a good point there because in a down market, so what happens is in a down market, and if you're in financial trouble, you've got to sell your house no matter what. So the price is going to continue to drop until the house sells. In a market that's going up or a market that's pretty stable, people don't have to do that as much. They've got options. Options are always good, right? Refinancing or whatever. So I think that's kind of what saved us in 2008. So I'll go back a little bit farther from that. In 1989, 2000, um, that was the worst housing market crash that we've ever seen, right? And the houses came down 20%, but it took 6 years for that 20% drop to happen. It didn't happen overnight. And in that case, there was a lot of, I don't know if you, like back then was a lot of speculation, right? So a lot of people were buying houses from builders and they were they weren't closing the deals. They were flipping the house before it even closed. And at that point you didn't have to close deals. That's why builders changed the rules now, right? That's why they ask you for a pre-approval. You need a commitment letter, even though your closing is 4 years out, because they want to make sure that you qualify. People were buying those houses. They had no intention of closing it. They were flipping it before the closing date, and you could do that. So your name was just erased. But when those rules change, so when the prices started to go down, people had to sell no matter what. They had no choice. So the price keeps going down because people had to get out at some point. In 2008, that wasn't the case. In 2008, when we saw a slowdown, what happened was the prices started to go down because of what was happening in the States. But then there was just that lull where no houses sold because the sellers weren't in dire straits. They were saying, well, if I have to sell my house for that amount of money, I'll just keep it. And that kind of buoyed the market up. So when that happens, when you see that, and like, yeah, a lot of people thought, okay, well, once all this, all these mortgage deferrals end, we're going to see all these houses coming on the market, power of sales, and that never materialized, right? Because I don't think people just didn't. I don't think maybe willy-nilly took those deferrals. They took them serious, right? They did it when they absolutely had to do it. So that makes a big difference, right? It makes a big difference when the market is stable, and then when you keep the rates this low. Yeah, if you're in financial trouble and you got to sell your house, but you've got, your equity's gone up 60,000 over the past year. You're still, so you sell the house, you're still okay. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I just I don't see a downturn here because I still see a lot of pent up demand. And I think the reason we're going to see pent up demand is because there hasn't been the immigration into the country, right? Because of COVID, there hasn't been the, people moving province to province. You haven't seen that as much of that provincial moving as well. So once all of this clears up, you're going to see all that, the pent up demand of the people who wanted to move now, and realizing, are we going to have to work from home forever? Are we going back to the office? And then all this other pent up demand coming in with immigration and stuff, I think is going to keep the real estate market moving. Plus, if rates are at 1.5%, I mean, my clients are getting, like I said, 0.99, 1.53, 1.59 interest rates.
Mhm.
It's going to
And
be really
even
hard.
just, yeah, and even just in, was it in 2008 when that crash happened? They said, they're basically doing the same thing that they're doing now. We're lowering the interest rates to allow people to probably stimulate the market and everything. But then, I think 2009 or something, an article came out, or maybe 10, 11, somewhere around there, an article came out that they can't bring up the interest rates because they're going to be putting, people in jeopardy, that they won't be able to pay their mortgages. And basically, they're still doing the same thing now. You're bringing down the rates to stimulate the market. But what does that do? Again, it doesn't allow the government or to bring up the interest rates, because again, now more people are even more indebted. And then if they bring up the rates, obviously they don't want to make the economy collapse. Right. So I
Yeah.
find it very interesting, because sometimes it makes me think maybe we will go into a negative interest rates, because it's just like they want to stimulate the market. And it's just like, once you hit zero, and apparently in mortgages you can, or just in money general, you can go into negative interest rates. Normally you go
Yeah.
to zero and there's nothing left. In this economy, you can actually go into negatives if you want, and then
Yeah.
you're stimulating people like, hey, if you get a mortgage, we'll pay you for getting a mortgage. Who's going to say
Yeah.
no to that?
I'm waiting for that day, Diana.
Me too.
But you know what? You make a good point there. But yeah, you make a very good point there about the rates. But let's don't forget that, yes, the rates are low, but you're not qualifying at that rate, right? Which is done some good to keep the market stable, right? Because even though you're paying 1.5% or 2%, you're qualifying at 4 or 5%, which is really important. So that helps to keep the market stable. Where the problem comes in when you're getting an interest rate at 2%, and in 6 months or a year that interest rate goes to 4. Now you're in trouble, because that's a really big difference. But when you've qualified at that amount, it keeps you stable, because you can still make those payments. I mean, there's nothing to say that people aren't going out and then over leveraging themselves at that point, which is a possibility. But that's where, your own
Due
you have to have your
diligence.
own rules of engagement on how you're going to do this. But I think the interest rates, it makes a big difference in what people can afford, and that's why we're seeing so many houses selling. And people keep saying, I don't know how people are affording houses. Well, that's how, because the interest rates are so low. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're amortizing that over 30 years, that's a lower interest payment. But yeah, it is a really interesting market. But I also don't think we can underestimate that this housing market here in Ontario has pretty much kept this economy going for a good number of years. To kill this housing market would be a huge mistake, right? Like, that's what's kept the economy going. You have to figure, how
And I
much
think that's,
spinoff is there,
yeah, and that's
right?
Canada's economy, is real
Yeah,
estate. Like, they bring in immigrants, and everything is for the purpose of bringing up the prices of houses. Like, if
yeah,
you look at Japan, for example, they don't do anything related to immigration, and they've been saying that the prices of their houses have just been going down, 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 right? Because the demand isn't increasing. Like, they're not bringing immigrants. They're very like, we just want our Japanese people and only them. And so their prices have actually started dropping for many years, I think 10 years now or something.
yeah,
Whereas, like, we're working in a different way, right? We're like, let's bring in more people, we want to bring more jobs, we want to stimulate the market more. And what is that going to do? That's going to, because of that, you need more houses, right? You're going to need more rental properties. So,
yeah. But I wonder, like in some other countries, in most other countries, people just don't move like they move here, right? Like in a lot of countries, people stay in the same house forever, whereas here people like to move. And I mean, a lot of that is people are just more transient here. Um, and they'll change locations for jobs or whatever, change, go to a different province, go to a different country. So it tends to be a little bit more transient, but also just family wise, right? Like you buy a house, you get married, you have kids, like you just need more space and stuff. So, I mean, back when I was a kid, I grew up in a house with, 6 siblings and both my parents in a 4-bedroom bungalow with 1 bathroom. So people just don't do that today. It's not the standard, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
it used to be. And in some countries, it's just the way it works. So I think we're still going to be, my take would be we're going to still be in for a bumpy real estate market over the next little while. And when there are properties that are in demand, they are going to sell. They're going to go fast, and they're going to go, they're going to go at asking or higher. So I think if you're an investor and you're looking for an opportunity, just look outside of that. Where are the opportunities? Don't get yourself so pigeonholed into one type of property. Do your due diligence and learn where are the opportunities, where are the cities where there are opportunities, what is the product that has the opportunity as well, because there's a big difference, right? I know you will always say, like, maybe you can buy a single detached and turn it into a duplex, or up or lower. There's always opportunities if you keep your eyes open and look
And keep
around.
your mind open, because for
Yeah,
example,
keep your
even
mind open.
another funny thing that happened with me was, for example, last year I said I would never invest in Toronto. That was my thing yesterday. Last year I was like, I'm going fully out, out, out,
Yeah,
out. And what did I do? I invested in a flip in Toronto. But that was again because I even though I said I wasn't going to do it, doesn't mean I wasn't actually going to do it. Like that was
right.
just like some of my criteria, but there's some criteria that's willing to change, because like that, like you have to be very fluid with the market. If the market is going this way, you gotta go with it. If you go the other way, you're struggling to swim through that because you're going against the flow.
Yeah, but the networking part of it is really important, because that's where you find these opportunities, right? So if you're not networking, this isn't a zero sum game. You making money is not stopping someone else from making money. So network with as many people as you can, because that's where you're going to hear about these opportunities and get involved. And I know you're a big one for networking. You have the networking group, and we're having a meeting on Thursday. That's a huge part of it. Like, get involved with other people and network, and you'll hear about these examples, and you'll hear about opportunities that come up. Because sometimes, there's an opportunity that comes up, and there may be an investor that just isn't in a position to take advantage of it at that point.
Yeah.
And so
Or
you
it's
will
not
hear
their
about it.
strategy. Like
Right.
always thinking that networking is not related, like, hey, I'm gonna work with you. Networking is just meeting people, getting to know, getting to know them. Cause like that, like you may tell me something, for example, I'm not looking in Hamilton, and you start telling me things about Hamilton. I'm like, maybe I may be interested, or now I may start looking into it a little bit, just because, I know that that's your area. I know you're good at it. Right. So it's just like, not always is the purpose of networking to, like, let's say, do partnerships. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it can be like information sharing, right? Or like that, like someone has a deal, they can't take care of it, and they're like, here, like, this is an amazing deal. I already have one going on. I don't have the money for it. Here, you take it. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different reasons to network that you just don't even realize until you get it. It's still until you start networking that you start seeing things where information gathering or like that, or maybe you do find a partnership from it. Like there's just so many different opportunities that can come from networking, and
Yeah.
definitely shouldn't take it lightly.
Yeah. So maybe, because we're going to wrap up soon, but maybe you can just explain to everybody about the event on Thursday. And I think that'd be a really good event for, especially I think people who are just, it's good for everybody, right? People who are just thinking about investing, like, what does this all mean, and what do I need, and
And just the influence, right? Because you have to be, if you want to get a property, beginner, advanced, like intermediate, doesn't matter. If you want to get a property, like it's very hard to do it on your own. It's like you're struggling yourself with your mind. But if you're like, oh my God, Sandy, like I want to buy a property, but it's not happening, you'd be like, hey, like maybe you give me advice on places to look, or like, don't worry, you got this, like keep on going. Like when you're with like-minded people and people that are on the same mission, or you see someone's like, hey, Sandy bought one in Hamilton. I've been looking in Hamilton, I didn't find one. Then it kind of gives you that motivation. I need to go because she
Yeah.
was able to find one. Why didn't I find one? You know, so it's like being around the people that do it is so important. And
Yeah.
like leading on to that, so with the networking event, we'll be starting with a 1 hour speaking segment on mindset and performance. So this month's topic is about mindset and performance. And then we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have questions, we answer them. Then after that, we'll lead on to the networking part, where that will also be an hour. And how it will work is basically you do one-on-one, 5-minute breakout rooms, one-on-one, and we just rotate everyone. So you get to meet a lot of people. You have 5 minutes to just try to get to know them, and see, you know, what relationships you can build, what you can learn from them. You know, just getting to know each other and just have
Ask
some fun.
questions. Yeah, just ask questions, and you never know where it leads to, and kind of the
Yeah.
partnerships that it leads to. It's all good. Yeah. So
Exactly.
we'll put
And
it.
with the, oh, sorry, I was gonna just add on to, and if you're new, you may want to get the VIP ticket where you get the opportunity to talk to experts. And that's also really nice because if you have questions, for example, like Sandy will be on. So if you have any realtor related questions or investor related questions, she's there. Same thing myself. I invest in BRRRRs, I invest in flips. I also do private lending. So I will be there if you want to talk about that. Well, we also have a mortgage broker, Neil D'Souza, where if you want to talk, and he specializes in private lending. So if you want to talk about mortgage, like anything related to mortgages or specifically to private lending, you have him. Giancarlo Cataldo, he's a contractor, so he does renovations. So same thing, you got renovation questions, you can talk to him about it. If you're already more advanced and you're getting your social media ready, you're trying to do your presence, we have Sahas Chopra, which he's a brand specialist. So he'll help you, and he specializes in real estate. So he'll help you, you know, prepare yourself to brand yourself in social media, which is also very important if you want to grow, because people need to get to know you. So yeah, so like that, depending on where you're at, either you can go just mingle, talk to some experts, have some fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Diana. So we'll put in the chat, but you can, on both of our Facebook pages, you will see information on the event and how to get tickets and what to do if you're interested. And then also you can put in there maybe how people get the tickets, a little bit more details, and we'll go from there. And so next week on Tuesday, we will be doing this again at 1 o'clock. What are we doing
BRRRRs,
next week, Diana?
it'll be about BRRRRs and flips.
Yeah.
So we'll
Okay.
see what the topic will be for next week. Something
Yeah,
related to
exactly.
BRRRRs and flips.
All right, awesome. Okay. So I will see you Thursday and then again on Tuesday, but this has been great. Good information.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys do want information for the tickets, you just can go into my bio. I have the link there, and it takes you straight to information about the event and then purchasing the tickets there too.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Diana.
Right. Thank you. Thank everyone for coming on. It was nice chatting.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.